Perfect. Thank you ever so much. That's amazing. So welcome everybody to the meeting of the Joint Archives Board on the 5th of February at 11 a.m. So the committee members for this meeting are myself, Councillor Laura Beddoe, Councillor Richard Bix, Councillor Simon Christopher, Councillor Andy Martin, Councillor Leslie Dedman and Councillor Marion Lepodovo. So you are very, very welcome. And we will go straight into the agenda. Apologies.
Yeah, so we've received apologies from Councillor Richard Biggs.
Okie dokie, perfect. So I can't see, let's just double check. Everybody else seems to be here. So that's perfect. Thank you ever so much, Josh. Declarations of interest. Does any member have any declaration of interest that they wish or need to make? If you don't in this item, then just let me know as we go through the agenda, because you can do it as we go as well. The minutes, let's go through the minutes. Let's have a look. I don't propose to go through the item by item. Everybody's had the minutes. The last meeting was on the 8th of November last year. Does anyone have any questions or matters arising or follow-up actions that they think need to be followed up or have not been followed up? I think most of the items from last meeting were for noting anyway, so I'm not sure there are follow-up. But if anyone's got any comments, now is your time to jump in. Otherwise, I will take silence as approval. No? Okie dokie. Public participation, there isn't any. Questions from members, there are none. Urgent items, there are none. This is really easy. We're 2 minutes in and we're on item number 7. I like it. So let's go to the main event. So this is a kind of single item meeting where we look at update from Sam, who's Sam Johnston, Service Manager for Archives and Records. There are a couple of recommendations. We need to support the draft budget for adoption by both councils. We need to look at the recommendation for match funding. And that's our goal for this item. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Sam to take us through the draft budget and also any updates, which we always look forward to because they're usually good ones from Sam. So Sam, take it away.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I'd just like to welcome Hannah Brown, who's our new finance manager, who's taking over the role from Paul as we've moved directorates. Perhaps it's worth just mentioning that at the outset of the meeting, the Joint Archive Service, along with all the other services managed by my manager, Lisa Cotton, have shifted over within Dorset Council to the Corporate Development Directorate. So we have a slight sort of change of personnel in some areas, at least. As you mentioned, it's a fairly short report. I mean, we're here really, I suppose, to pick up on matters arising from the last meeting. The principal one being the budget setting process, and as I think most of those present are aware, there was a recommendation made for a standstill budget to be recommended to both councils as of last meeting, but that obviously had to wait for the two councils to further consider their budgetary positions and agree whether that was feasible. My understanding from all those financial folk and senior officers is that is recommended, that is technically up for approval by you, the joint board. Should that be your view? So I'm very pleased to sort of say that there's been no change in that particular position. So that's the first matter of business. I don't think there was anything else I was going to report on the financial side of things. And obviously we can pick up with any questions after, if that's agreeable. The next thing to move on to, therefore, is the update on the capital project, which is item 3 section 3 in the report. I think those of you, again, that from leading on from the last meeting, there was a certain degree of uncertainty around the ability of the Dorset Council to find the potential requirement of match funding for this project, given the hugely straitened financial position within the capital programme, huge number of projects up for discussion and consideration, and this was one of them. We weren't looking for an immediate contribution to capital costs. This is probably more likely to be required in the financial year 26-27. But in order for us to approach the National Lottery Heritage Fund to undertake a capital scheme, it would be necessary for us to have at least some kind of match funding from the local authority. I've had a subsequent conversation with the lottery to basically put the position forward, which is that there was no possible way, as I understood it, that 40% of the match funding would be possible from Dorset Council. It's just simply out of the question. Too many other competing demands. So was there any possible way in which we could consider a lower percentage from the authority? That's the only way the project could proceed. They understand our position. They understand, I think, the wider local government situation, which is obviously one of extremely difficult choices, and they are themselves moving into a new financial strategic plan, which means therefore that I think they're better placed to understand the wider funding context within the sort of world that we inhabit. So there is an in-principle agreement that the lottery would be willing to consider an approach from us on the basis of around about 10% match funding from the council, with an additional sum of money to be raised by the service itself through other means. That would be trusts, foundations, the sorts of things that heritage bodies generally need to go to increase the match funding sum to be put forward towards the project, in addition to lottery and in addition to what the council itself can manage. So I think I'm waffling a lot here, but suffice to say, I think that there was a positive response. It does mean that that we are able to proceed on that basis. And the really good news was that on the 30th of January, Dorset Council approved that 10% match funding, which equates to about £540,000 into its capital programme for the financial year 26-27. So later on this year, I will be talking to lottery again and putting forward a new expression of interest predicated on those figures that you've just heard about. So very good news as far as the service is concerned. It does give us an ability to move forward and try and address that rather pressurized storage situation that we face. So that was the other sort of financial issue on the agenda for this morning. Really, the other two things are updates, which service updates, which I thought were quite nice to update the board on. The first one being that the closure period that the board approved back in November for the service, that's a 2-week closure period, which we re-entitled Collection Weeks, because it really was about addressing the backlogs of work that have built up over the collection stored here. Took place in the latter part of January. The report gives a sort of summary there of what was achieved. I think the staff and the volunteers that participated felt it was a really worthy and worthwhile exercise. A lot of work was achieved, a lot of really good, solid achievement there. I hope you'd agree. It means that we've have really started to dig into some of those sort of pressing backlogs that have built up. You can actually see, for example, in the sorting room, as we call it in the service, those of you that may have seen that space, which is incredibly cluttered with incoming material, it's now you can actually see the floor in a good number of places, which is it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually a huge improvement. And we really feel that this has been an excellent thing for the service to do. One of my colleagues has written a blog, which I think I circulated the link to last week, which sort of gives a little bit more of the human dimension to this. And should the board be amenable to it, we would very much like to suggest that this become an annual event, because it really has opened the way forward to doing some of those things, as I say, which were just actually impossible to do whilst providing a public service at the same time.
Sam, can I just jump in? Do you mind if we take a question?
Not at all,
Because
no.
Marion has her hand up, and it's probably relevant to what you're talking about right now. So rather than skip back, is it all right if we?
It was. I
come
was
in?
hoping. I wasn't sure when you want to take it and when Sam would.
Nah,
want to
come
take
on
it.
in. Come on in.
I mean, clearly, it's proved very valuable from the services aspect point of view. What sort of feedback, if any, have you had from users?
Good point.
Nothing negative, which sounds like a sort of and then on the plus side, we've actually had some very complimentary comments on the blog saying, you know, saying
Okay.
this sounds like it was a really good thing to do. We did a lot of comms before the closure period, so back before Christmas, that's pretty much as soon as the board approved it, we put out our messaging online and social media around the building itself, so that the public were well, should at least have been well aware of what was going on. We were checking messages and emails to ensure that any essential business was covered. So in all, I don't think we had any actual negative comments or complaints about what had happened. We tried to also put it in the context of this. This is something that those that use archive services in other places would be well aware, in many instances at least, that this is something that other services have been doing for quite a long time, and we're now, in some respects at least, falling into line with that sort of procedure. So very, very positive, I think, overall. And the volunteers that took part, I should really mention them and thank them for their efforts alongside the staff. Did a brilliant job. I think you can see there we got sort of pushing towards 250 hours of volunteer time fed into that 2-week period, which really enhanced what we were able to achieve. So a big thank you to them.
That's a huge volunteer achievement, actually. And I was gonna draw out 1,700 boxes were sorted and audited. That's a lot of boxes. So I'm really glad, Marion, that was a great point, and I'm glad that there wasn't.
Well, I mean, I was a great supporter of it when it came up in November. In fact, I've got a feeling I may even have proposed or seconded it. Can't remember. Anyway, I was a very great supporter, but I wanted to know, you know, whether it had. It obviously has worked as well or even better than hoped. But I just wondered what the as I say, the service.
And the blog was really good.
And they're obviously happy, so it's win all round. Great.
Absolutely. And I don't know if anyone else had a chance to look at the blog, but it's really interesting. Andy, did you? Andy's waving. Come on in.
Yeah. Good morning. Thanks for that, Laura. I was having I'm involved with a charity which is Christchurch New Forest based, which is about remembering the 12 airfields that were in the New Forest and Christchurch during the Second World War, played a big part in D-Day. That's slightly irrelevant, but we had a long meeting. We had a board meeting on Saturday, and we had a long discussion about how hard it is to get volunteers, and there was a wider discussion about other charities and other organisations. So I was just intrigued by that level of volunteering, and just wondered what is it that you do, Sam, that managed to pull in so many people, or at least so much of a commitment from so many people in volunteering. Might be able to learn some lessons from that.
Tea and biscuits very important.
I was going to say it's the biscuit.
Always ensure that the refreshments are well stocked. But I think generally it's about trying to ensure that volunteers understand what they're there to do, so that they feel supported and properly engaged. So they were very much working alongside the staff. It wasn't a them and us culture, where they were integrated with what staff were doing. Staff were there to support them should they need it. Many of them have been with us for quite a long time, so they were familiar with the subject matter, but also the building. And I guess we've just been very lucky. We've been doing volunteering for a very long time, and I know how difficult it can be to start from scratch. But I think generating something like, if you're looking for volunteering, we quite often find generating a role profile, so it's very obvious. There's a whole procedural approach to, sounds terribly tedious and bureaucratic, but bringing in volunteers who are going to be successfully engaged, I think, means being very clear from the outset what the mutual obligations and benefits are, so that there are no surprises, if you see what I mean. So people don't, the expectation management factor is covered off, and they tend to stay for longer. Then they seem to, the people that come in really know what they're there to do and feel, it's that they don't have to do it, of course, hence the name volunteering. But so they're fully kind of apprised of what they're there to do, and it seems to work.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Sam. Thank you. Thanks, Andy. That's a great question. Right, Sam, having ridden roughshod over your report, do you want to carry on?
Thank you, Laura. The only one other thing to mention, it was just an update on the Thomas Hardy Archive project, which I think the board will know, probably to the point of tedium. We've been trying to raise funds for quite a long time now, but we had following the last board meeting, we had a kind of surge of success in terms of taking us to the total. So the just under £70,000 that we required is now fully raised, fully achieved. Had a very sort of positive engagement with the National Trust locally, who wanted to not only pay the balance of what we required at the time, which was about £9,000, but have also decided they'd like to have a one-day-a-week intern working on the project alongside the project archivist when they start. So that's because they want to the purpose being that they want to redisplay Max Gate and the cottage using the collection, which is a great way of it's what it's for.
Okay.
So that's been very positive, and the project archivist will be starting in March, in just about a month's time, on an 18-month contract, working through that. And it's been really, other positive benefit I think has been that we've had other interest from the William Barnes Society about fundraising for the archive of William Barnes himself, the Dorset poet. We don't need £70,000 to work through that one, but they're very keen to take on a fundraising challenge and seek to raise money to similarly catalogue that collection. So that's been a very nice sort of spin-off from this. Thank you.
That's excellent news. How could we ever be bored with Thomas Hardy? Anyway, so thank you for that. That's a really interesting report and really reassuring, and particularly around the partnership working with the National Trust. I think that's brilliant. It's testament to the team and yourself and how you promote this stuff. I think it's great. So basically, that's kind of it, isn't it? Our role today is the recommendation is that we support the draft budget for adoption by both funding councils. As Sam said, it's a cash standstill budget, and contributions from both councils remaining at the same level, which is to be congratulated in these hard times. And we have noted the match funding contribution of approximately 10%, which is great. Noted the National Lottery Heritage Fund contribution potential, the situation with that, and also noted the extremely positive service delivery news. So I think that's brilliant, and thank you, Sam. This is going to be a very short meeting, I think. Has anyone got any questions on any of those recommendations that I've just read out? It's pretty straightforward, but thank you to Sam and the team, doing a cracking job. And I need to catch you about the Wool Fair Charter at some point. Some historic stuff happening in my ward as well, Sam, so I'll pick that up with you later. Okay, I can't see any hands up. I can't see any dissent. Are we all content to agree the recommendations?
Yes.
Thumbs up from Andy, yes from Marion, marvellous, thank you everybody. In that case, in record, get it, time, thank you for listening to my joke. I will thank you all for coming. There is no exempt business, and at 11:20, the meeting is